This week at the Internet Cafe, News Online. Meet Rebecca Eisenberg. She writes for a newspaper and for the web. Is there a difference? Knight Ridder is one news organization leading the way in cyber journalism. We'll show you what they're up to. Is the Drudge Report journalism? We'll ask columnist Larry Magid. This is Indolink, one example of specialized online news services for people far from home. Meet Gary Camilla, executive editor of Salon. Are they playing fair with the Clinton impeachment story? And a look at DigitalHigh.com, an online newspaper for teenagers. News Online, this week at the Internet Cafe.
The Net Cafe is made possible in part by TechWeb for up-to-the-minute technology news. And by TVA, Television Associates, bridging the worlds of computers and video with DVD authoring and MPEG encoding services.
Well, lots of folks now turning on the web to check out the news and find out what's going on in the headlines, Washington stories all the time. You doing that?
I don't check it for the Washington stories because I have to tell you I've had enough. But I do check for daily updates. I actually check.
Updates
That's
on
probably
what?
Just what's going on in technology, new announcements, new
Well, certainly for technology
storylines,
stuff,
that
the
everything.
web's the best place to go, isn't it?
That's what I do.
Andrew?
I do read the technology news, work in the industry.
Right.
I did read a little part of the Star Report, I have to admit.
A little part of it. Which
Right,
part?
But just a little part. But local news and things like that, I'm not so sure if that's really the way to
Pick
use
up the
web.
paper.
Yeah, pick up the paper, and read the local newspaper.
I like it for the archived stuff more than anything else. The fact that you go on to almost any newspaper in the country and find an article from 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's great stuff for research.
Yeah.
So not only current news, but stuff that's been there a while. Well, we'll find out a lot more tonight. And Gary Camille, you are executive editor with Salon Magazine at salonmagazine.com. And just a few people have heard about you guys lately with breaking the Henry Hyde story. And I don't want to get into this whole issue, pro-Clinton and anti-Star and all the rest of that stuff, but you obviously got a lot of attention. Did this sort of really mean something to Salon? I mean, did you see your hits go up? I mean, is this one of these really major changes in Salon?
Yeah, this was one of the big ones. We had a huge spike earlier with Diana.
Right.
That was one of the ones when we jumped on that very fast, and we really realized that the ability to respond in a daily, very timely, even hourly fashion is what really built traffic. And of course, the Hyde one, though, was in a league all by itself.
Now, there's a big story like that. Is it possible not to really make a paper or a zine or something like that, where all of a sudden so much attention gets drawn to you that it kind of changes your whole status in the journalism business?
I think it can help. I don't think one story can completely make you. You have to retain those page views.
Yeah.
We went up about 3 times over our baseline of 350,000 a day up to like 1.2 million. But then you have to hold them. That's the key. But it certainly helps.
Now, again, there's been a lot of controversy about where Salon is at editorially and so on and so forth. What I notice, apart from whether you take one side or another in particular political issues, there's certainly a lot of attitude in Salon, right? And it's very edgy. I mean, I think I saw today you refer to the voyeur general, in terms of referring to kind of the Star, or nail the hypocrites and that kind of stuff. Is that just part of the style of what's going on in online journalism these days?
Well, it depends. Certainly Slate is much more staid and doesn't push the envelope as much in much of its rhetoric. Some of it tends to be online. You're allowed to be a bit freer in the way you can do things, but some of it is the style of the editors. We like to be edgy, and we want to be insouciant and sassy, and sometimes, get down. We like to call ourselves a smart tabloid.
Okay. That's good. All right, now you guys were newspaper people, basically. You got together and decided to start this magazine. Did you think, well, should we do this in ink or should we do this in electrons?
Right from the beginning, we realized that, doing this, the way to do it was always a purely online product. Well, the distribution costs, it's really economic. The whole reason of starting this was it's virtually impossible without vast capitalization to do something of the order that we did.
But once you were going there, editorially, did you say, now, as you suggested, we can be edgier, we can be different, we don't sort of have to go by those same rules the old-fashioned media go by?
Yeah, there's a definite feeling of freedom. I mean, we're calling our own shots. There's no publisher who's leaning over our shoulder, and I think some of that is attributable to the culture of the net. The net does allow for freer voices. It began as an immediately communicative, speaking, arguing medium, and some of that carries over into the journalism that's carried out on it.
Is it go too far? I mean, the raps on Drudge and on some of the other things that are online, in which, well, is it really journalism? I mean, do readers have to kind of look at things a little bit differently when it's an online magazine?
Well, I don't think so. I think the Drudge, does what Drudge does. People that go to Drudge know that he does what he does. We have adhered to orthodox journalistic standards. We don't, we double, triple source all of our stories. We wouldn't be putting things out that, so-and-so is beating his wife. This isn't the kind of journalism we do. So that there are irresponsible or gossip-mongering sites that are online, but we are, in our news stories, we don't do that. When we're doing commentary, we feel, we can be free-swinging.
All right, briefly, finally, Gary, for people who may not be familiar, you go to salonmagazine.com and sort of describe the content of the magazine. What's your editorial take?
Well, it's a big potpourri. We've always got news analysis, but we have a lot of different sections. We have a section called Mothers Who Think, which is about family issues. We have a travel section. We have a great 21st section, which is about technology. We have a media section covering breaking media things.
Lots of well-known writers.
Lots of columnists, everybody from Camille Paglia to Garrison Keillor. So we've got...
salonmagazine.com.
That's it.
Try to hold on to those page views.
So we have Bob Engel here from Knight Ridder Real Cities, and I think Knight Ridder is probably one of the largest newspaper chains in the country.
We are the largest group of big city newspapers in the country.
Big city papers, and now you're going back to that same audience with local websites, basically local news.
We are.
How does a newspaper company, a print newspaper company, make that transition into the online world?
Very painfully, actually.
Tell us about your pain.
Well, the Real Cities Network came out of Mercury Center at the San Jose Mercury News, which I started in 1993. And it received such a good response that the CEO of the company asked me if I would become a vice president of the company and do this across all of our 28 markets.
Now, the Mercury News and the Mercury Center, I think, is best known for technology reporting. That's sort of one of its areas of expertise. So I can understand, online tech news makes kind of sense. What about more entertainment or local?
Every Real Cities market has its own specialty. And in Charlotte, it's NASCAR, and we have a site called That's Racing. So Real Cities is a network of 40 sites. 28 or 30 of them newspaper affiliated, but then there's some others that are not directly, you wouldn't look at them and think they had any particular association with newspapers.
Okay, so what can I get online, say at the San Jose Mercury News, or I think you guys also do the Contra Costa Times here in the Bay Area. What can I get on there that I wouldn't get by reading the paper?
Well, our idea was to start with the content that we have in the newspapers, but not stop there. Because the characteristics of the internet are much greater depth, searchability, all of the characteristics that are inherent in the internet. So what you would find if you came to Real Cities, what we promise people is for local news and local information and local shopping and advertising, you will not find any other site as good as the Real Cities site in your community.
So you're saying the offerings from Microsoft, Sidewalk.com, other local things are not as comprehensive, or?
They don't have a real presence in the market. They don't know the communities. I mean, we've been in San Jose, for example, since 1851. And if you go to Just Go and you look, let's say, at Peninsula Restaurants, which includes Palo Alto, you will find 400 and some odd listings, and about 200 of them have been rated and reviewed. The last time I went to Sidewalk and did the same search, they had 43 restaurants, 2 of which were reviewed.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay. Now, what about the communities that you don't reach currently? Are you planning to expand? I live in San Francisco, for instance.
Right.
Are you planning to expand up there?
Yes, and we already have in some respects. Our Yellow Page product, for example, our Just Go product includes San Francisco events, entertainment, music, stage, theater, etc. So it already serves pretty well in San Francisco. It'll get better as time goes on because everything gets better on websites if people are paying attention.
Right. Okay, well, next time I need something to do on Friday night, I'm going to have to check out Real Cities.
Just Go is the only product I've ever created that my daughter actually uses.
So, Teresa, tell me a little bit about Digital High. This is a great website, lots of information. Now, this is targeted specifically to high school students, or what's
teenagers?
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And it can be kids from middle school wanting to learn about things that teenagers do in high school students wanting to know about their first year of college. And that's pretty much what we kind of center around.
So how does this work? Do you have a whole bunch of adults writing these articles, or you know, are these, how do you organize this?
It wouldn't work if the adults would write it. That's my feeling anyway. I'm the only adult really running the thing. And, well, we have the kids running it pretty much with their ideas. I have 12 editors on staff, and then 190 freelancers around the country.
190 freelancers. This is incredible. Now, Shinten, you're one of the members of the staff, is that correct?
Right.
And so what's been your experience working with Digital High? I mean, do you enjoy the experience?
So far, I've loved it. It's just amazing. I mean, it's opened up a lot of opportunities, and right now I'm the editor of the driver's education section, and people can visit it and find out information on like permit tests, what to do when you get a ticket, stuff like that. And I mean, we send out emails to everyone. They reply what they want to write, and then we wait for the articles to come in. We edit them and send them over to Teresa. And it's just really great interacting with all the people around the nation, seeing what other high school students feel about different aspects of the culture, the U.S. culture, and different topics.
So now the one thing is to keep in mind, now Digital High is a website, sort of stands on its own rights, hosted by the San Jose Mercury News Online. Now, Digital High it also hosts other high school websites as well, or how does that all work?
Well, there's the servers at the Mercury Center give us the space.
Okay.
And that way, basically the kids at the high schools do the HTML. They send me all of the pages, and then I manually put them up.
Okay, so you've got not only the Digital High section of the site, but you can actually go to the regional sites or the high schools, the very specific high school sites as well.
Right. The goal is to just link to their URL, unless they need the server space.
So now, one of the things I noticed that you just recently won an award with the Newspaper Association of America. Tell me a little bit about that.
We won that early this summer, and we were really surprised because we didn't know who nominated us. It turned out to be someone at the organization, and it was very rewarding because it was nice to know that the kids are getting recognized for the good work they do.
So they said you were hip and irreverent, and there were a whole bunch of other really great words that they talked about. Now, how do you manage that? I mean, as a Digital High, what about censorship issues? I know that a lot of especially in the opinion section of the website, there's some edgier discussions, pretty racy topics. How do you handle those issues?
Well, for me, I think my boss and I both decided that we wanted to keep the voice pretty, unedited, and so that the students would feel like it was their site. Right. So the only things I really look for when I get the edited pieces back are libel issues, and then just unnecessary cuss words. So,
which we have to do in the adult world too, so it's not a big deal. So what are the next steps for Digital High? Where do you see things going?
We're trying to go national, pretty much.
So what does national mean for you?
Well, either trying to hook up with all of the other teen websites in the chain for Knight Ridder, and we'd really like to do that. Or just kind of developing on our own. It seems to be going that way naturally anyway.
So really just expanding with links to other high schools as well outside of the Bay Area?
Yeah, and getting more kids in every state kind of writing for us.
It's a really quite extensive website, great information there, even for me watching it as a grown-up, getting dialed back in, so it's a great site. Thanks a lot.
So we're here with Larry Maggot again, and Larry, we're talking about news on the web, and of course with the recent news with the Clinton and the Star. I mean, everybody's running to the web to read all this stuff. Right. And Matt Drudge is one of the key figures here, and so we can't do a show about news on the web without talking about Drudge. A lot of controversy about that kind of, quote, journalism. What do you think about the Drudge report?
Well, I have to give the guy credit. He's a tenacious reporter who goes out and does things, and he's the kind of guy who probably never would have gotten a job with a legitimate news organization. My problem with Drudge is that he's not that original, is that he basically stole Newsweek's story. Yeah. And that Newsweek and most of the major dailies and news organizations have certain standards. Drudge doesn't have to live by them. You know what they say about freedom of the press belonging to he who owns one? Yeah. Well, anybody can own the press now, and Drudge drudged it up, and he, on his own.
You did call him a reporter, though. You'd use that word?
Well, I use it loosely. He reports to the public. The problem is he doesn't do all of his own research. I mean, I'm not particularly thrilled by Matt Drudge. I don't think he's the most thorough and accurate of all the people out there. But I must say that it is refreshing to see that there's a possibility that some guy in his apartment in Hollywood can emerge as a major media figure almost overnight, and that could never have happened without the web.
Is there, though, when you're reading, and we've touched on this with some of the other people we've talked to tonight, when you're reading news on the web, a little more caution than maybe when you're reading the Times or Newsweek?
Unless you're reading the Times or Newsweek website. It really depends where you go. It's like cable television. You know, you can watch CNN or this show, or you can watch an infomercial. You have to know the source of the material. But yes, when you're on the web, you've got to have a more critical eye than you do certainly with the major newspapers.
Who knows where the stuff is coming from half the time. All right, Larry, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So Raj, I was on the Indolink site last night. You're the publisher of Indolink, and I was really impressed. It's, I think, probably the largest Asian Indian website, probably outside of India or probably in the world. And I learned a lot just by going to that site for a few minutes. Why start a site like this?
Well, there are approximately 30 million Indians living outside of India.
It's a big audience.
And about 1/3 of which is in the US, Canada, and the Europe. And most of them are, well-educated professionals.
Are they wired? Are they online?
In fact, yes. Indian community is one of the largest wired community on the internet.
Okay.
I should say largest wired ethnic community on the internet. And therefore, it's very natural that they have tremendous appetite for getting information and news from the internet.
Right. Okay, and we're talking about news tonight. So what kind of news can an Asian Indian living outside of India get on that site that they maybe wouldn't find in either Western media or anywhere else?
Right. Well, again, Western media typically caters to the Western audience, which does not necessarily include the ethnic communities. And especially for India, I think most of the times they are obsessed with the typical stereotypes like snake charmers and elephants and Maharajas and poverty of India.
So kind of the negative stereotypes.
Right, which doesn't excite the Indians, and therefore they need something which is closer to home, closer to reality.
Okay, now you have reporters that are actually in India writing stories on a daily basis. How does that work?
We have a large staff of journalists and reporters in India who are feeding us the stories every day. And in fact, the time difference works out to our advantage because they are 12 hours ahead. And they feed us the stories at the midnight, and
yeah, so you're almost getting tomorrow's news a day ahead. Wow,
absolutely,
that's a great deal. Now, this is mostly business news, cultural news. What about entertainment? I've heard that India has a huge movie industry.
Absolutely. In fact, India has one of the largest film industries in the world, perhaps as big or if not bigger than Hollywood, and we call it Bollywood.
With over 1 billion people, yes, there's a big movie-going audience.
So the Indians have a tremendous appetite for films and music, and again, internet becomes a medium of choice to provide them with all kinds of information.
So are you guys doing reviews? Are you gossip on the stars?
Absolutely, everything. We have top 10 songs and top 10 movies and all kinds of things.
Okay. Now, the other thing I saw on the site, which was interesting, was a matrimonial section. It's something that's pretty popular here, too, people looking to meet online. Why do that on your site?
Well, again, because of the fact that Indian communities spread all over the world, and people tend to, to associate or, I guess, marry within within the community, and internet provides them the medium to transcend the geographical barriers, and therefore they can link up with somebody who is speaking the same language or comes from the same community.
Right. One of the things I didn't notice on the site, but I know are very important to any ethnic community that's sort of far away from home, is the ability to find things from the culture. Things you can buy, foods, whatever.
Absolutely.
Are you guys going to be offering that kind of stuff?
Yeah. In fact, the products and services are one big component of our website because again, as you said. All ethnic communities have need for things that they use in their day-to-day lives.
So what can I buy there?
And well, that's where the e-commerce is beginning to take shape for us, and hopefully soon we'll be able to offer all kinds of online merchandise like audio, video tapes, and groceries and whatnot.
Well, it sounds interesting. You may get some non-Indian folks shopping on there as well.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Raj.
Rebecca Eisenberg, you are a columnist, web specialist. You do all kinds of things, write for all kinds of people. I want to ask you about the mystery of push. We did a show about news on the web a year ago, and it was push and Pointcast and Marimba and all that stuff, and now it's push? What's that? So whatever happened to Push?
Push was a brilliant PR campaign and not much more. It offered the promise of personalizing news for the users, but it never followed through. Why? Basically because of the technology, is my opinion. It turned into pretty much a data dump.
Yeah.
But what users want, it seems, is users want personalized news. And now you can get that elsewhere.
Well, what's the difference in personalized news and point gives? I mean, Push was the sort of thing we'll just shove it at you without your making a decision each time, right? Not quite the same as personalized, is it?
Well, there are two issues here.
Yeah.
First is the means of delivery, which is in the background.
Got it.
And the second is what is delivered.
Right.
And it seemed to me that what was delivered didn't follow through the promise. Certainly stuff was pushed.
But maybe not the right stuff.
It wasn't what people wanted. But now better technology has arrived, and it's on the web, and some sites, the smart ones, are beginning to use it.
What do you think about that whole idea? I mean, you write for a generic newspaper, et cetera. I mean, isn't there a danger, it seems to me, people predefining ahead of time what stories I want to see and what subjects I'm interested in? And don't you sort of miss the whole point of reading somebody's journalism?
Well, you do get to read people's journalism. Here's to me the bottom line. People like to see themselves in whatever they're reading. So if I log on to mysnap.com or myyahoo.com and I see, welcome, Rebecca, I feel happy. If I only get to read the news about business and technology and I don't have to read sports, I'm happy and my time has been saved.
Let me ask you about, you write for the Examiner here in San Francisco, one of the things you do, and you write for the print version, and then there's also the online newspaper. What's the difference between those two? People still have trouble understanding, well, what happens differently once I read it online, and why should I read it online?
You should read it online if you don't live in San Francisco. Otherwise, you should subscribe to the Examiner. But at least in terms of my material, it's the same copy gets posted on the web. I do write for web-only publications as well, such as CBS MarketWatch.com, where I write once a week. And I do find that often there's a different style of writing when you're writing for web-only.
What's the difference?
I can be more free with not having to explain everything.
Why?
Because of the beauty of the link.
Okay.
Instead of
you don't understand to go there.
Right. You know, I could say, as we discussed last week, and then link to my column about it last week, instead of having to summarize every little bit. And web users will be able to do that. It's very efficient.
Now, what do you think about, everybody talks like in all news television and the cable networks about new hourly cycles. Is it changing the way you cover news in that it's like constantly on, there is no such thing as a deadline anymore, it's always a deadline?
It's always a deadline, and it's always a race to the finish.
Right.
I'm in a fortunate position that I do all columns and not reporting,
not the same
that I don't have to break people's backs anymore to give me information that they don't want to give, which is always unpleasant. But it's true. News is always happening. News never sleeps, and you have to be prepared to get it out as fast as you can.
This whole Star business and the Clinton business in which you had this huge information dump on the web, was that sort of a defining moment that really, they said, hey, the web is the first place you go to get the information?
Well, I think for the people who are fortunate enough to have access to the internet, and I wish that that included a larger number of people, yes, it was a defining moment. But I think what will really be the defining moment is when we get the majority of the world, much less the country, online.
A long way off, though, probably, huh?
A long way off.
Rebecca, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, what's interesting on the web is I think we're seeing the end of like just shoveling stuff over from the newspapers and the magazines and the things like Salon and the things like Slate or even Drudge Report maybe, where they're just original journalism, maybe more broadly defined, on the web. What about the stuff you thought of?
Well, you know, the Mercury site of part of the Real Cities area was probably one of the premier technology news sites you know, when it first launched. And I think that's really interesting. Some of the local content, I think, especially the entertainment stuff, is very interesting. Jobs and classifieds. Beyond that, I don't know what news you can't really get.
Well, that's an example, I think, the point you made at the beginning of the show, that's better than the newspaper in a way, right? It's like it's everything you want to have.
You can say, what do I want to do this weekend? And it's there.
And high school kids doing it.
I love that website. There's very few websites that I get to visit where I see something and it just feels like an old shoe. I'm really comfortable and I get a sense of personality. It was wonderful. Well done.
It's going to get bigger. All right, that's news on the web. We'll see you here next time.
The Net Cafe is made possible in part by TechWeb for up-to-the-minute technology news. And by TVA. Television Associates, bridging the worlds of computers and video with DVD authoring and MPEG encoding services.
To purchase a videotape copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-310-7850. Please specify the show number and the topic.